I was halfway through my contractions when his phone lit up. We were in the delivery room. The lights were dim, my gown soaked in sweat and fear, and my fingers gripping the edge of the bed like it was the last thing tethering me to life. Nurses moved around like ghosts, whispering numbers and instructions. The heart monitor beeped steadily, a reminder that something beautiful was about to enter the world. I looked over at him, my husband. Ethan, his eyes were on his phone, not on me. His thumb scrolled, paused, scrolled again. Not even pretending to care. "Can you hold my hand?" I asked, breath shaky. He looked up for a second like I'd interrupted something far more important. "In a minute," he mumbled, "work text," but it wasn't work. I knew that, I felt it. That's the thing about labor. Your body is so open, so raw. It's like every cell in your being becomes a truth detector. And in that moment, I knew the man I had loved for 10 years, the man who promised to protect me, honor me, cherish me, was somewhere else, with someone else. I turned my head to see his screen. And there it was, a message from her. "Camille, my best friend since college, maid of honor at our wedding, godmother to the child I was about to bring into this world." Her name glowed on the screen like acid. "Can't stop thinking about last night, miss you." Already he didn't even try to hide it. He just tilted the phone away and said, "Focus on the baby. This is your big moment." My big moment, and yet, it suddenly felt like a funeral. My body was breaking to bring life into the world, and he, the father of my child, had given his heart, his body, his time, to my best friend, while I was carrying our child, while I was lying in bed every night alone, rubbing shea butter into my swollen belly and whispering lullabies into my skin. While I was preparing to become a mother, he was sleeping with her. The contraction hit me like a wave, but the emotional pain, the betrayal, drowned it out, and still, I stayed calm. That's the thing they never tell you about women like me. We don't scream when we're betrayed. We watch, we memorize, we record every detail into our bloodstream. He leaned over to kiss my forehead, and I turned my face slightly, letting it land on my temple instead. He didn't notice. Camille had been the sister I never had. We met in sophomore year, two broke girls with big dreams and the same coffee order. We were inseparable. She was there when I had my first heartbreak. I was there when her father passed. She cried on my wedding day, told me she'd never seen Ethan look at anyone the way he looked at me. Now I realized she was watching him not with admiration, but hunger. I labored for 9 more hours. He stayed the whole time, half-heartedly rubbing my back, checking his phone between pushes. When our daughter was born, I looked at her face and whispered, "You're safe now, I promise." But I wasn't just promising her safety from the world. I was promising her safety from him. He didn't know it then, but I had already taken the first step. Days before I went into labor, something in me had sensed it. The late nights, the way he snapped at me when I asked where he'd been, Camille's sudden distance, her silence when I sent her the ultrasound photos, her voice sounding strange on the phone, like guilt with lipstick. So I did what I always do when something feels wrong. I prepared. I quietly called my lawyer, changed the beneficiaries on my life insurance, updated my will. I moved my small savings into a separate account in my name only. I made notes, saved texts, exported call logs. I emailed myself everything I might need while they were busy playing with fire. I was quietly building the shelter that would protect me from the smoke, and after she was born, I smiled through the photos. I let him post pictures of us, captioned with "Welcome to the world, my little angel," like he was father of the year. I let Camille come visit, standing at my bedside with pink balloons and a forced smile, pretending she hadn't been between my husband's sheets just nights before. I let them both believe I didn't know, because the best kind of revenge isn't loud. It's quiet, it's patient, it's woven through kindness so masterfully. They never see it coming. The nurse handed me the baby again, and I looked down at my daughter, at her tiny hands, her perfect mouth, the way she fit into me like she'd always been there. And in that moment, I made a decision. I would not fall apart. I would not scream. I would not let betrayal define me. I would use it. Turn it into fuel. He thought I was just another broken woman with a baby and a shattered marriage, but what he didn't know was, I had already planned everything. Camille and I met over a broken espresso machine and a shared hatred for early morning classes. It was sophomore year. She walked into the campus coffee shop behind me, groaned when the barista announced,
"No cappuccinos today," Anne muttered. "This school is falling apart." I laughed. We were instant friends. She was everything I wasn't. Wild, impulsive, magnetic, people followed her without question, and me? I was the planner, the fixer. The kind of woman who carried a stain remover pen in her bag and sent thank you notes for dinner parties. But Camille made me feel alive. Every friendship has its rhythm, and ours was clear. She led, and I steadied. By senior year, she'd become my anchor. We lived together, shared everything. I still remember how she cried when I told her Ethan had proposed. "You're the lucky one," she said, squeezing my hand. "You get the fairy tale." If only I'd realized she meant she wanted it too. I met Ethan at a networking mixer I didn't want to attend. He was charming, intelligent, attentive. In the beginning, he remembered the small things: what kind of tea I liked, which side of the bed I couldn't sleep on, how I talked to books in bookstores like they could hear me. Camille said he was too vanilla at first, then suddenly, she began complimenting him. "He listens," she'd say. "You're lucky, most guys don't." Looking back, there were signs, flickers of betrayal dressed as concern. The way she always asked about our arguments. Always wanted to know when he traveled. Always offered to keep me company when he was away. But I trusted her. When we got married, she stood right beside me in blush pink satin, holding my bouquet and smiling like she wasn't already fantasizing about my life. They say betrayal doesn't come from enemies. It comes from those we hand our knives to. And I had handed her mine lovingly, again and again. It wasn't until I got pregnant that I saw the first cracks in Ethan. He didn't say it, but I felt it, the resentment. The way he recoiled at the sound of morning sickness, how he flinched when I placed his hand on my belly during a kick, like it reminded him I was changing, becoming something unfamiliar. And Camille, she swooped in, always offering to help, always calling, texting, showing up unannounced with food I couldn't keep down and stories I couldn't listen to. She once said, laughing, "You're glowing, but Ethan looks exhausted." Poor guy. I didn't know it then, but she was slowly reframing the story, making herself the supportive friend, the one who understood him, the one who wasn't bloated, emotional, or distracted. The other woman isn't always a stranger in red lipstick. Sometimes she's the girl you shared mascara with, the one who curled your hair before your engagement shoot, the one who heard you whisper your wedding vows in the dressing room, heart racing, tears on your cheeks. One night, I'll never forget this, we were having dinner at home. I was 7 months pregnant, Ethan was distracted, and Camille had stopped by just to drop off a lasagna. We sat together, eating, laughing politely. And then Ethan made a joke, something light. Something I don't even remember now. But Camille laughed too hard, touched his arm. He looked at her, too long, too soft, and my heart sank. She stayed till late that night. I pretended I was tired and went to bed early, and I listened, not to the sound of voices, but to the silence, a silence filled with things unspoken, glances exchanged, electricity that had no business crackling between the man I loved and the woman I trusted. It's funny, I always thought if something like this happened to me, I'd fall apart, scream, cry, shatter. But I didn't. I became quiet, focused, dangerous, like a woman with nothing left to lose, which, ironically, makes her the most powerful person in the room. I started documenting things. Camille's sudden trips that matched Ethan's work travel. Her new phone I noticed on the coffee table once. The one she locked quickly when she saw me glance at it. Ethan's changed passwords. His sudden interest in keeping his phone face down. The vague late meetings. I wasn't imagining it. And I wasn't going to confront them. Not yet. Because betrayal this deep deserves a response that echoes. One that burns so slow they don't even realize it's fire until they're covered in ash. I moved money slowly, carefully. I met with a lawyer, an old friend of my mother's. Told him I had a bad feeling and wanted a plan in place just in case. He didn't pry, smart man. He'd seen enough women in his office too late to ask questions when one came early. We changed the locks on my savings, opened a separate trust for the baby, amended the house title, backdated a few things, documented everything. I even created a digital archive. A private folder named Honey Recipes full of timestamped screenshots, voice memos, and emails. If something ever happened to me, I wanted my daughter to know exactly who her father really was, and what her godmother had done. Every time Camille kissed my cheek, I smiled. Every time Ethan held my hand, I squeezed back, every time they both looked at me like I was blind. I blinked slowly, let them think I was naive, emotional, distracted by pregnancy hormones, let them, because I wasn't planning a confrontation, I was planning an empire. One where they didn't exist. And now that she was here, my daughter, the plan would begin. Ethan thought I'd be too broken, too exhausted, too overwhelmed to see clearly. Camille thought I'd never suspect a thing. They were both wrong. I had just given birth to a new life. And buried the woman who would have forgiven them. There's a terrifying peace that comes when you finally stop pretending. Once I accepted the truth, that Ethan and Camille had betrayed me, the world became sharp again. The fog of denial lifted, and everything had edges. I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't confused. I was awake. And awake women are dangerous. They move differently. Think deeper. Strike slower. I didn't need confirmation to know what they had done, but I wanted it. Not for confrontation, not for closure, for documentation. Because when people lie with such confidence, with such cruelty, you don't just expose them, you disarm them. I started small. I logged into our shared phone account. Ethan had never changed the password, likely too arrogant to think I ever would. His call logs were long, predictable, except for one number that showed up almost daily. Even on the day I gave birth. It was Camille's number, but not her regular one, a second number, registered under a different name, and that's when I knew this wasn't a mistake. This wasn't some tragic emotional slip that happened once and spiraled. This was a system, a plan, and I was the one they built it around. I reached out to someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Nora. Nora was Camille's ex-roommate and a woman Camille had screwed over back in the day, stole her boyfriend, borrowed money she never repaid, the usual Camille trail of glitter and grief. We hadn't spoken since graduation. But I sent her a message anyway. Hey, it's me. I know it's been a long time, but I think you're the only person who would believe what I'm about to say. She replied in 5 minutes. Turns out, I wasn't the first person Camille had done this to. She always targeted the quieter friend, the one with something to lose. Nora called her a walking red flag with mascara. I laughed. First time in weeks. Nora didn't just believe me. She offered to help. She worked in tech now. And while she couldn't do anything illegal, she could teach me how to search metadata, use location tracking legally, and run background searches. Within days, I had a folder. It wasn't titled Honey Recipes this time. It was titled Contingency. Inside were screenshots of Camille checking into hotels under a different name, emails between Ethan and an accountant that linked to a P.O. box near Camille's apartment, photos Nora helped enhance, blurry at first, but clear enough now. Ethan's hand on Camille's lower back outside a hotel lobby. He looked happy. Relaxed. Like the kind of man who didn't have a wife at home folding his socks and nursing their newborn. I copied everything to 3 flash drives. One went into my safe deposit box, one into my attorney's hands, and one into a small, fireproof box I kept under my daughter's crib, labeled in red, "Open if something happens to me." The twisted thing, Camille kept visiting. She held my baby like she was family, whispered little compliments, brought onesies and pacifiers and expensive bottles I never registered for. Once, she held my daughter's tiny hand and said, "She's going to be a heartbreaker, just like her dad." And she looked at me. Not the baby. Me. Like she wanted me to flinch. But I didn't. I smiled, hopefully. She'll grow up knowing what loyalty actually means. She blinked. Didn't respond. I knew then. She suspected I knew. Good. Let her wonder let it rot her from the inside. Ethan, meanwhile, was trying harder than ever to play the involved dad. Late night feedings, diaper runs, holding her in his arms for social media, but never when she was screaming at 3 a.m. "I'm proud of you." He'd say, "You're doing so well." I'd nod and say, "I learned from the best liars." He never blinked. He never caught it. Because the one thing liars never expect is that you're lying to. I started moving things slowly. Transferred part of the house deed into a trust in my daughter's name. Moved my small freelance business under an LLC with just my name on it. I even hired a private nanny just in case I went back to work. Though I had no intention of working until my revenge was complete. One afternoon, Camille dropped by unannounced. Ethan was still at work, or so I thought. She walked in, holding a small pink dress with lace on the collar. I saw this and thought of her. I said, "You always know just what to give." Before she could respond, Ethan walked in from the back hallway. His face froze. He hadn't told me he came home early. And Camille hadn't told him she was stopping by. They stared at each other for a second too long. And then I watched it happen. The mask cracked. Camille looked away first. Ethan swallowed hard. And I smiled like I didn't see a thing, but I did. I saw everything. That night, I sent Camille a voice note. Thanks again for the dress. She looked adorable in it today, almost like a little version of you, charming, dangerous, and always showing up when no one asked. I watched the message go from delivered to played to silence. No reply. That was the last time she came to the house, but I wasn't done yet, because betrayal like theirs didn't deserve confrontation. It deserved orchestration. I didn't just want them exposed, I wanted them to unravel in front of each other, and the perfect opportunity was coming. My daughter's naming ceremony. Everyone would be there. Including Camille. I'd already asked her to help coordinate the cake, including Ethan, who didn't know I'd invited a very specific guest. A woman named Kendra, Ethan's old work colleague. The one he stopped mentioning after Camille entered the picture. The one who still had messages from Ethan, messages dated months before my labor. Back when he claimed to be fully committed to family, I had them printed. Framed. Wrapped in pink tissue paper with a gift tag that read, "For the people who taught me everything I needed to know." There's a peculiar silence right before the moment a storm hits. Not the kind of silence that soothes, the kind that warns. That's exactly what the house felt like on the day of my daughter's naming ceremony. Warm lights, laughter, pastel streamers, and satin ribbons. Everyone buzzing around with glasses of Prosecco, complimenting the flowers, the baby, the beautiful new family, but underneath it all, the air buzzed like an electric fence. They didn't know it yet, but they were standing inside the eye of a very carefully calculated storm. I had worn white, symbolic, I suppose, though I didn't plan it that way. The dress had been a gift from Camille during my baby shower. How poetic. I thought, let her own gift witness her undoing. Camille arrived exactly on time, pink peonies in hand, kissing my cheek like nothing had changed, like she hadn't crossed the most sacred boundary a woman could cross. She was wearing soft pink again. Her signature, innocent, glowing, beloved by all. But not by me. Not anymore. Ethan hovered by the bar, playing the proud father, laughing too loud, pouring drinks he didn't drink, checking his phone too often. He hadn't noticed Kendra slip in. She wasn't dramatic, bless her. She wore a navy wrap dress, simple earrings. Nothing to call attention but her presence. Oh, it shook him. His eyes landed on her, froze. He whispered something to Camille, who glanced toward the gift table, then quickly looked away. They knew, they didn't know what I'd planned. But they knew enough to be afraid. When the moment came, I cleared my throat gently and tapped a glass with a spoon. Everyone gathered, friends, family, a few work friends. The pastor who was going to say a blessing over our daughter's name. I held her in my arms, tiny, warm, sleeping. She doesn't know it yet, I began, voice soft. But this little girl has already taught me more than I ever thought I could learn. Smiles all around. She's taught me patience. She's taught me endurance. She's taught me to see things clearly. I paused. My daughter's name, I said, turning slightly so I could see Ethan and Camille. Both means truth. A small ripple through the crowd. But truth doesn't just happen. Truth has to be revealed, uncovered, brought into the light. I gestured toward the gift table. So I wanted to give something back today. To the people who unknowingly gave me a gift far more powerful than they ever realized. From the table, Kendra stepped forward. She handed the box to Camille. Camille hesitated. Ethan's hand went rigid around his glass. Open it, I said gently. People were watching now. So many eyes. Camille gave me the sweetest smile, tight, confused, and pulled the pink ribbon. Inside were 3 5x7 framed prints. A blurry but clear enough photo of Ethan with his hand low on Camille's back, time-stamped one day after my third ultrasound. A screenshot of their matching hotel check-ins, registered under fake names, and finally, a printed message from Ethan to Kendra months ago, saying, "Can't talk tonight. She thinks I'm working late, Camille's staying with her." We're both in the clear, silence, utter, pure pin-drop silence. Camille's face drained. Ethan stood frozen like someone had unplugged his brain. People gasped. Someone dropped a glass. The sound of shattering against tile was oddly satisfying. The pastor muttered, "Jesus." My aunt leaned toward my mother and whispered, "Is this real?" And I just smiled. Not bitter. Not triumphant. Just free. I loved you both, I said, looking at Camille first. More than you probably deserved, and maybe that was my biggest mistake. She opened her mouth, closed it. No words. No defense. She looked around the room, but nobody met her eyes. Then I turned to Ethan. You cheated on me while I was in labor. You let her hold my child knowing exactly what you'd done. You had the chance to come clean, and instead, you doubled down. Still no words. Just his face, flushed, twitching, at the corner of his jaw, his body trying to decide whether to fight or flee. But don't worry, I said quietly, I'm not here to scream or cry. I've already taken care of everything. Then I pulled out the final envelope. Divorce papers, signed, sealed, witnessed. Delivered. I held them out to him. For you. I said, your last chance to sign something in this house. People began to whisper. Camille backed away from the crowd, humiliated. Ethan stared at the envelope like it might explode. I moved the house, I added 3 weeks ago. It's under a trust. You don't own it anymore. He opened his mouth. I moved my daughter's future out of your reach. I cut in. That includes her name, her home, and her legacy. He looked at Camille like she was supposed to save him, but Camille looked like she was trying not to vomit. She clutched the pink gift box like it might keep her from falling through the floor. I kept your secrets, I said to her, voice trembling now. I defended you when others didn't, and you betrayed me at my most vulnerable. I turned to the crowd. She didn't just sleep with my husband, she did it while I was giving birth. While she was supposed to be comforting me. Double quotes gasps. Someone whispered, that's evil. She helped name my daughter while she was sleeping with her father. Mouths dropped open. Then I walked toward the door, baby still in my arms. But before I left, I turned one last time. You both deserve each other. I paused, but neither of you deserve her. And then I walked away. Outside, the wind had picked up, but it didn't feel harsh. It felt like release. My daughter stirred in my arms, tiny lips parting, eyes fluttering open for a second. You're okay, I whispered to her. Mama's got this. And for the first time in a long, long time, I believed it. There's something eerily quiet about the days that follow a public betrayal. People don't call. They whisper. They don't ask how you're doing. They ask each other if they knew. And when you're the one who exposed it all, calmly, precisely, without raising your voice, it scares them more than a screaming match ever could, because no one expects the broken woman to walk away holding all the cards. But I did. By the next morning, the photos had made it to Facebook. Not from me. Someone from the party had posted. What a naming ceremony. Never seen secrets drop heavier than confetti. Below it, 3 photos. Camille, pale, clutching the gift box. Ethan, mid-reach toward the envelope. I handed him me, walking out. Baby in arms, head high, spine straight. He hadn't realized how much it would matter. How much they would spiral once they were no longer protected by my silence. But they did. Oh, they did. Camille was the first to feel the ripple. By Monday, her Mommy and Me group removed her from the WhatsApp chat. By Wednesday, a screenshot of her standing outside a hotel with Ethan had gone viral on a local gossip forum, with the title, She held her best friend's baby while sleeping with the father. She tried to do damage control. She posted a long, flowery caption on Instagram with a quote about forgiveness and not judging without knowing the full story. She included a selfie, eyes red, baby pink lipstick still perfectly applied, but comments flooded in. You held her baby while sleeping with the dad. You're what betrayal looks like in heels. I hope your daughter never meets someone like you. She turned off the comments by noon. Ethan, ever the narcissist, thought he could recover with a few apologies. He sent me texts, long paragraphs filled with half regret, half denial. We were in a dark place. I didn't mean for it to happen. I still love you. Don't take everything away. I didn't reply. So he called, then emailed, then showed up, standing outside my front door like a ghost of a man who used to be. Powerful, please, he said, eyes glassy. Just hear me out. I stood in the doorway, my daughter asleep in her crib upstairs. I did hear you, I said coldly. Every time you lied. Every time you kissed her and came home and kissed me with the same mouth. He tried to reach for my hand. I pulled back. Don't ever reach for me again. Then I closed the door in his face and locked it. 3 days later, I found out his company had reassigned him. Apparently, someone from the office had seen the photos too, and someone else forwarded the hotel check-ins. and someone else leaked the fact that he'd been sleeping with his wife's best friend while she was in labor. The HR team didn't fire him. They didn't have to, they demoted him from a managerial office to a side desk, from presentations to paperwork, from leadership to irrelevance. The best part, he still hadn't signed the divorce papers, not because he wanted to fight, but because signing them meant admitting he'd lost. And Ethan didn't like to lose. So I made it easier. I filed a no contest order, froze the joint accounts, transferred the SUV into my name, and left him one final note on our old kitchen counter. You lost me when you let someone else in while I was still bleeding. Camille, meanwhile, tried to pivot. She joined a meditation group, started posting about healing the divine feminine and breaking generational trauma. She even tagged me once in a quote about forgiveness between sisters. I reported it for harassment, blocked her on every platform. And then I sent a screenshot of the post to her new boyfriend. Yes, new. Turns out, she'd started seeing someone else just weeks after everything imploded. A single dad, nice guy. Until he found out she was the woman behind that story, he left her publicly. Posted, lesson learned, always Google the woman who brings pink wine to every event. You might think I found joy in all this, in their fall, in their shame, but honestly, I just felt relief, because I didn't do anything to them. They did it to themselves. I just held up the mirror. And while they fell, I rose. I reopened my design studio from home, rebranded it under a new name, Rose and Ruin. Clients poured in, many from women who had been through the same thing, wives, mothers, fiancés who had trusted the wrong people. They didn't just hire me, they followed me. I spoke at a small event for women entrepreneurs, shared my story carefully, but truthfully. A woman came up to me afterward in tears and said, "You turned your heartbreak into a blueprint." And I did, because the best revenge isn't fire. It's rebuilding so strong they choke on the dust you left behind. As for my daughter, she'll never remember the betrayal, but she'll feel the strength in our home. She'll know that her mother didn't just survive, she transformed. And that's legacy. They say a woman becomes unstoppable the moment she realizes she doesn't need anyone to save her. They're right. But what they don't tell you is that becoming unstoppable is quiet. It's not fireworks or confetti or champagne toasts. It's waking up one morning and not checking your phone to see if he texted. It's walking past a mirror and recognizing the woman staring back. It's holding your child and knowing you are enough. You've always been enough. And from that silence, something powerful was born. I built a business, not for survival, for purpose. Rose and Ruin became more than a brand, it became a movement. Elegant design with a rebellious heart, custom nursery, interiors, women-owned businesses, art, therapy, prints. Each project carried my story in some invisible stitch or shadowed line. Every client came with a scar and left with a crown. Women whispered my name to each other like it was sacred. The woman who rose from ashes. The woman who turned betrayal into blueprint. The woman who refused to stay broken. I didn't chase love, didn't entertain pity or curiosity. I wasn't interested in being anyone's redemption arc, but I did start seeing someone, eventually, not because I needed him, but because he didn't flinch at my fire. He didn't ask for the story behind my silence. He simply respected it. And one night, when I finally told him the whole truth, start to finish, he didn't say, "That's crazy." He said, "You survived the kind of storm that drowns most people, but you walked out with the blueprint for your own lighthouse." And I think that's when I knew this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about legacy. One afternoon, nearly 2 years later, I got a knock on the door. Not Ethan. Not Camille. Her. A little girl, Camille's daughter, now maybe 9 or 10. She stood there holding a crumpled envelope. I blinked, confused. "Sweetheart, where's your mom? She said to give you this," she whispered, then ran. Inside the envelope, a letter handwritten, tear-stained, weakly, poetic. Camille. Begging, rambling, regretting. She had moved away. She wrote, lost her job, lost most of her so-called friends. Her daughter, the one who came to my door, had started asking questions. "Mom, why does everyone look at you weird? Why don't you have any friends like my friends' moms do? Why did Miss Leela say you betrayed someone?" And Camille, at long last, broke. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she wrote, "but I need my daughter to know the truth, not just what the world says. I need her to see a woman who survived me." At the bottom, she wrote, "Please, just tell her who you were, before I tried to steal it." I sat with that letter for a long time. I never responded. I didn't need to, because that little girl would grow up. And one day, she'd look me up, not as the woman her mom ruined, but as the woman who rose anyway. And when she did, she'd find my name attached to everything her mother tried to erase. Beauty, strength, voice, integrity. Ethan. He signed the divorce papers eventually, not out of maturity but defeat, I heard. Through a mutual friend that he's working in logistics now, no leadership, no limelight, he's dating someone younger, of course, and from what I've heard, less forgiving. He sends child support. Automatically no notes. The only thing he's allowed to send me now is silence. Which, honestly, is the first respectful thing he's ever given me. And as for me, I gave my daughter a new middle name, Solace. It means peace after pain, comfort that doesn't come from anyone, but within yourself. She's the reason I stayed strong, but I am the reason she'll never have to learn strength through suffering. She'll learn it from watching her mother rebuild a world from the ashes, without losing her softness. Last month, I spoke at a women's summit, thousands of seats, one mic. And when I walked on stage, a giant screen lit up behind me. The woman who raised her enemy's daughter's future. I stood beneath those words and felt every beat of my story echo through the room. I told them everything, not the names, but the truth, and when I finished, they didn't clap, they stood. Women with tears in their eyes, women with fists in the air, women mouthing thank you through trembling lips. Because I wasn't just telling my story anymore, I was telling ours. The story of the woman who was silenced. The woman who was betrayed in a hospital bed. The woman who walked away, not in ruins but in rebirth. They say revenge is best served cold, but legacy is served in silence, on a silver platter of dignity, strength, and a story that can't be rewritten. It had been 3 years since I last saw Camille, 3 years since I buried the part of me that begged for an apology she would never mean, 3 years of building, breathing, rising, until one spring afternoon, life whispered, "It's time." I was at the Rose and Ruin Foundation's mentorship gala. It had grown into a national initiative. We funded scholarships for women rebuilding after betrayal, violence, or abandonment. The ballroom sparkled with women who had learned how to turn their pain into purpose, and in the crowd just off, to the side, stood a girl in a pale yellow dress, maybe 12, maybe 13. Her curls framed her face, but her eyes were Camille's, not the tired, hollow ones Camille carried when she last wrote me, but the old ones, before betrayal, before deception, hopeful, curious, quietly burning. She waited until after the applause, until the stage was cleared. The champagne glasses clinked. The photographers wandered off. Then she approached me. "Are you?" She hesitated. "Are you the woman my mom used to be friends with?" It hit me then, not pain, not anger. Peace. "I am," I said, kneeling slightly to meet her eyes. "I think she was really sad when she lost you," the girl whispered. I smiled, soft, not bitter. "Sometimes people make choices they can't take back," I said, "but that doesn't mean you have to carry their shame." She looked down, then back up. "My name's Grace. She told me she almost named me after you." My throat caught. "She said you were the most beautiful person she ever knew, inside and out." I exhaled slowly. She got that part right. We sat down by the wall of flowers. Away from the noise, she told me about her life now, new school, books she loved. She wanted to be an architect. I smiled again. That was my daughter's dream, too. Emma and Grace. Two lives that were never meant to intertwine, yet somehow did. She pulled something from her bag. A worn journal. "She told me to give this to you," said it was her last chapter. I hesitated before taking it. The weight of it felt heavier than paper. Inside were pages of Camille's handwriting. Not performative, not poetic, just raw, honest. She wrote about postpartum depression, about comparing her life to mine, about jealousy so loud it drowned her sense of right and wrong. But the last page read, "You once said I held your baby while betraying you. The truth is, I also held your light and I shattered it. I will never ask for forgiveness, but I hope my daughter learns to carry love better than I ever could." I closed the journal. Not with closure, with clarity. Grace looked at me nervously. "Do you hate her?" "No," I said. "Why not?" "Because hating someone means they still own part of you." I paused, "and I've reclaimed all of me." 2 weeks later, I sat with Emma, my daughter, at our favorite cafe. She was almost a teenager now, sharp-eyed, soft-hearted. Double quotes, "Mom," she asked, Have you ever trusted someone who didn't deserve it? I laughed gently. Yes, baby. I did. She nodded slowly. Did it ruin you? I leaned over and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. No, sweetheart, it revealed me. I later created a new mentorship program through my foundation, not just for women, but for daughters of the women we once were. It was called the Grace Project. For the girls born into the fallout of someone else's choices, for the girls who needed to learn that they are not their mother's shame, that they can rise, even if they were born in ruins. Grace was the first ambassador. She and Emma would speak together. Two girls on opposite ends of a shattered story, now writing a new one together. And that, my love, is the real revenge, not screaming in their face, not slashing tires or airing secrets, but becoming the story they'll never outrun, the one they'll have to explain to their children with downcast eyes. The one that echoes in every room they're no longer welcome in. You want the twist? I didn't destroy them. They destroyed themselves. I just built a world where their names were never needed again, and filled it with daughters who would never repeat their mother's sins.